The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, people of Earth. Coming to you cordless, everybody. It's Wednesday night, March 5th, 2025. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. in Singapore, 12 noon in Sydney, Australia, and here I'm sitting in Northeast Minneapolis. It's 8 p.m. Central Time. Next week will be Central Daylight Time. Who cares? I am Jim Peters, and welcome to another edition of Jim Peters at Night. This is episode number 204. If you're keeping score at home, our guest tonight is Jeffrey Meyer. He's a CEO and publisher of Conk News and my former boss. He comes on about once a month to shoot the crap. There, I edited myself there. And we had a pretty big week here too. Tomorrow night, Nathan Wooster, he's a reporter and a energy writer for the Epoch Times in New York City. He's going to be joining us. We'll be talking about politics, energy, and whatever else is on his mind. Very delightful man. Enjoy having him here. He comes on I think he's been on this show about 3 times previously, maybe. We have, it's interesting. We have various levels of regulars. There's people who come on once a month. There's people who come on every couple months. There's people who come on every quarter. Then you got your people that come on twice a year. That sort of thing. So he's coming on tomorrow night. Friday, we're doing a Friday show tomorrow, this week, which we normally don't do. I'm doing it to accommodate our guest. That's Lee Richardson. She's the founder of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas, Texas. She's a psychologist. She's been on once before, and she could only do Friday. And I thought, well, we could hold her interview over for Monday, but nah, what the hell? I got nothing going on. I'm old and tired. It's like, it's Friday night. Big deal. Big deal. I was a DJ in my time, Friday night. Woo, whoopee. Yeah, right. Sure. Might as well get on the tube and talk to the people, So anyway, she's joining us on Friday. The discussion is going to be originally, I booked her because I wanted to discuss about a gambling addiction among young men regarding sports betting, because it's becoming an increasingly dire situation. More and more men are young men are falling into gambling addiction. And I want to talk to her about that. But then one day I'm thinking, I saw this thing online about the fact that 60% of all men in America, all American men, 60% don't say they don't have a friend. What the hell? And then we wonder why our society is so messed up. Humans are made to socialize, man. Get out. Now, of course, I'm just sitting on my computer at the monitors and the microphone on Friday night, but hell, I've had a plenty good time. Don't worry about me. I got it done. So it's like, yeah, no. So anyway, yeah. God, I'm just an old fart. It's just so sometimes I watch these playbacks. I'm thinking, you got your old man. It's just like, what are you doing? But I like to talk to people. I'm good at it. So I'm going to keep on doing it unless you tell me to go to hell. And then I'm probably going to keep on doing it anyway, because at this point, I'm not listening to anybody. It's like, I've gone through that. I've done that dance a few times. Anyway, Jeff Meyer's here. We're going to talk to him now. Before, I'm going to set this up right now. You see the ticker at the bottom of the screen here. We have open phones tonight in part 2. After our interview with Jeff Meyer, we'll take your phone calls. That's at 325-CALL-JIM. That's 325-225-5546. You can also send me a text message at 408-458-5088. And that's a Silicon Valley telephone number, believe it or not. and we are not in Silicon Valley, but I snagged that. So, yeah, call us up, open phones, we'll talk about anything you want. What do I got on the docket for a part 2 about the fact that they have finally definitively figured out who Jack the Ripper is. They did this with DNA evidence, so it's done. That's 140 years that they've been wondering about this. They finally figured it out. It turns out it was one of the main suspects too. But yeah, it's definitive now. So we're going to talk about that. Got some media stuff going on that Jeffrey and I allude to. I mean, he's in the media business, so we talk about that. But there's some stuff I never got around to actually asking him that I want to get around in part 2. So we'll be taking your phone calls. But first, we had a commercial from Conk News, and you like that? You like commercials, don't you? Here we go. Joining us from an undisclosed location in northern Wisconsin, the CEO and publisher of Conk News, Jeffrey Meyer. He's got his hat on. Yeah, USA. Go.
USA.
Go.
To drowned out former Al Green, the singer.
Now, I got to start with this. I have to tell you, I actually didn't watch his speech. We did a pre-recorded show last night, but I fell asleep. I'm so used to being awake that I just fell asleep, so I didn't see it. But the reviews are all extremely positive. I mean, even the dolts at MSNBC were saying it was a good speech. Everybody except Rachel Maddow, as far as I can tell, she's the only person that had anything bad to say about it. But
yeah, I mean, it was Trump at his, no holds barred. He called out the Democrats several times for not clapping and not being excited about anything.
Well, that's the thing, though. They didn't even clap for the kid with cancer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a Zelensky moment for them. Like, know the room, right? Like,
yeah,
we can always be divided. That's fine. We don't want everyone in one party. We want a contrasting view so we can contemplate, is our thought right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't know good unless you know bad, or love unless you know hate. I mean, just day and night. I mean, those are just basic things of life that you have to have both sides. But these guys, I mean, Nancy Pelosi, now I don't think they showed Mitch McConnell, and I'm sure he was sitting there drooling, someone was sitting there waping his mouth or something.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, Pelosi with her cane, she looks like, I don't know, Cruella de Vil.
Exactly right. That's exactly what she looks like.
I mean, the whole thing looks like a group of misfits. And I'm not talking one party or the other. It's like, how did we get to this point that these people are just spending money without any concern of where it came from?
Well, I have to tell you, like our friend David Strom over at Hot Air, he said they soiled the bed. He's talking about the Democrats, And Roseanne Barr tweeted this morning. She said that it put the nail in their coffins. I mean, I heard somebody, I can't remember, somebody else said that it's going to doom them for the next 40 years. I mean, this looks so bad. I mean, it's just like, they just look like petulant children, just like you said.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, again, it's the adult or the parent saying, we're out of money and I'm going to go through the stupid shit we spend the money on, you know, Starbucks, 14 different movie streaming services. I mean, you can take what Trump was saying with that millions and billions of dollars and break it down to your household. Like, hey, if I have to tighten up my belt, something has to go.
right.
And someone's going to have to sit there, and the kids usually sit there and pout and piss and moan. But we're in a, you know, if Trump doesn't do this right, everyone's done.
Yeah.
This isn't like, I mean, I don't care if you have $100 million or you're fighting to get a meal today. Everyone's going to feel it. It's going to be crushing because everything's going to come to a scary halt because of the interest.
Yeah. And right. And so how can you be against that?
Right. Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with admitting I didn't realize that was going on because I wasn't paying attention. So I'm going to apologize for that. And going forward, I'm going to pay more attention. There's nothing wrong with saying I'm sorry and I wasn't paying attention. That's a human trait.
Right. And not only that, I think you agree with me because we've talked about this offline about the fact that both the Democrats and the Republicans are responsible for this.
Yes.
Debt.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. But now someone's trying to fix it and like they're against that.
Right.
It sounds crazy.
Yeah. It's like, what if we don't? Right? What if we don't? What if we spend another 5 years wasting $2 trillion a year? That's 10 trillion more.
Right. That's right.
You know, and I think what people have to grasp is this isn't money out of our savings account. This is money that our government has the ability to just produce with just out of thin air. And then the interest starts to be due that day. The interest starts to accumulate that day. So if you send $20 million to Egypt for a Sesame Street deal, if there's no return on that, we're paying 5.5% on $20 million.
That's right. Right. And there is no return on that.
Right. Right. I mean, if that's not going to drive our economy, and again, people say, well, it keeps peace in the world or some nonsense like that. It's like, well, it's about time the world said we're done killing each other because of governments.
Yeah, so let's segue to the Zelensky thing. So I'm watching Gutfeld's show last week or something like that, and Tyrus comes on and he says what I'm thinking, and that is, I'm starting to think that Zelensky doesn't want this war to end because he and his cronies, or even just his country, is profiting from it. I mean, am I naive here or full of crap, or what's going on?
It's something isn't adding up when you have 2 and 2, right?
Right. That's right.
And again, Trump couldn't say we're going to come and defend you because he's not part of NATO, right?
Right.
So the U.S. can't say out in public, if you do anything further, Putin, the U.S. is going to intervene. So how did they lay it out? We're going to sign a minerals deal. So now we have an established contract that field over there, we're going to dig the good shit out of it. And if the Russians come and touch it, now we have a vested interest in that. And now we can do something about that.
And also, to your point, now we have a return on our investment too.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking the money, just the rough war part of it. Putin couldn't do anything to that part or those pieces of Ukraine because they were in an agreement with the U.S.
Right.
So NATO doesn't count. None of that counts. It was a great way to tell Putin, we're going to be over there for money reasons, so don't come screwing around. So Zelensky just had to get out of the car and it was great when Trump greeted him. Oh,
You dressed up.
Yeah, you dressed up. And right there, Trump doesn't take you serious. Everyone knows that about Trump.
Right.
Everyone knows that about Trump. That, and he's a germaphobe. For him to shake people's hands, he has to reach down deep and touch someone else.
Right.
It's just, that's one of his basic phobias.
That's even one of the things about the Steele dossier, about the fact that these women peed on him for sexual pleasure. He won't even touch his own pee, let alone somebody else's.
Yeah. And so that started wrong. And then the Democrats, met with him before he went in and met with Trump, and they got him all jacked up.
Yeah.
And
you could do this, rah.
Then he sits there and says, gets out of control. And again, for the faint-hearted, that's how a negotiation goes.
Well, right. That's the thing. People are saying, "Oh, this was a disaster." No, it wasn't. No. That's how
if that scared you, then don't ever get into management, because if you can't fight for yourself, then you're done.
It's
if that made your skin crawl, or you couldn't pick a side that you would have jumped on and started arguing with. Don't try to be in a leadership role, because that's how the world works.
But Jeffrey, doesn't it scare you that so many people don't get that? I have to admit, I actually find it frightening that so many people don't even understand this.
Well, but remember, this is 2025. Kids can't fight in the playground, right? No one ever hears someone getting punched like, shit, I bet you that hurt.
Okay, but I have to stop you. I thought of you yesterday because when I was working for you, I don't know if you remember, this is like 2-3 years ago, you said, go on TikTok to see if you want to do anything on there. And I went on TikTok. This is what we're talking about, like, well, this is 2021 or something, 2022. I went on TikTok and I was appalled. I thought, oh my God, all these people are doing this crap. So yesterday I'm starting to think, well, Jesus, maybe I should get on TikTok, so I got on TikTok and it's worse. I went on TikTok yesterday. Oh my God, I don't even believe it. It's like, this is entertainment. I mean, Christ, it's just mind-boggling. I mean, we were stupid when we were kids. When I mean kids, I know when we were in our 20s. Now I'm looking at these people, they're way more stupid than us. Like, what the hell happened? I mean, Christ almighty. It's
they record it. We used to hear it the next day, like, I can't believe you did that on a tape.
Right. That's right. And they record it. That's right. That's the difference.
In our day, it could turn into a fish story. I didn't do that. Oh yeah, by the time it's over, you were laying up there naked or something. Now they get naked and record it. It's so stupid.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
There's nothing for the imagination.
No, there's 2 billion people on there. it just blows my mind. I got to give the Chinese credit for coming up with this, because, man, it's like, we didn't, they thought of this. It's like, holy Christ,
Yeah, they said, hey, let's see what they'll do. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there was a big parley board about what's the worst thing you think they're going to do. And someone got passed up and no one picked whatever crazy.
No one did. No one picked it.
That's only because the Chinese started about 600 AD or something, or BC.
They have a lot of years on us. That's true.
You got it.
We got we're pushing 250 here, and you're right. They're what 1,000? I don't know, 1,200. I don't know. And so how'd they end up with that stupid government? It's like, you'd think you would evolve over time. I don't know.
It's such a mass amount of people.
That's right. That's part of it. You're right.
And and they literally control everything there. Every way you think, act, move.
Well, they did it for a while. Now, I've had friends who've gone over there regularly, and I can't remember the name of the premier who was before, yeah, I can't remember his name, but they actually had for a while, and I'm going back 20 years ago now. I had friends who go over there and said, well, here's the deal. As long as you don't protest the government or complain about the government, you can pretty much do anything you want. And that was the case for about 20 years. And that's basically when the capitalism kind of started to flourish over there. People actually doing stuff, But now you're right. They've shut it down now. It's like now it's just, your usual communist bullshit. So
And now we have lots of tariffs on them.
yeah. And speaking of that, so you've got a bunch of businesses. How do you see the general business climate right now?
Well, Trump addressed it. He talked about the farmers. You're going to feel some pain. We're going to feel pain no matter what. But for an equalization, he has to do it. We can't be funding the world. It's ridiculous.
No, I don't. I have no problem. Well, here's the deal. I think my personal thing is I think the whole tariff thing is kind of overblown. Yeah, it's maybe going to cause a little pain, but I don't think it's going to cause a lot of pain, especially the way he's implementing it. And the other thing is, I don't see how anybody can argue about reciprocal tariffs.
Right.
If you're going to, 15% on us, 15% on you. It's like that's. I mean, and nothing will bring the tariffs down better than that, because so some little podunk country and we're charging them 50%. Holy Christ, well, how do we get them to stop? Well, drop your tariff and we'll drop ours. It's
right.
simple, but
it's more negotiation, and that's what people don't like. Like, they want to drive up to an ordering station and yell, "I want a number 1," and pull up 5 feet, and someone hands you out something, and that's convenience, but that's not how the world works.
Shamrock shakes, man. You pull up and you get a shamrock shake. I've never had one. People love them. I guess they're fantastic. But no,
cocaine.
You're absolutely right. Everybody seems to want everything nice and clear and neat, and it's like, well, no, the world doesn't work that way.
And it's bland, right? It's a number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You're right.
Tell them to hold the pickles, and you get a whole discombobulated deal.
Yeah.
Like, pull ahead. We'll see you in 10 minutes because we got to yell to someone. Don't put any pickles on there. What?
But the big complaint, I hear this from everybody all the time about the fact that every fast food order in America gets screwed up. If you did business like that, you'd be out of business. But I guess it's fast. That's the reason you eat it. Right. It's not good food. It's just fast.
Trump last night went through the IRS with all these. There's, I don't know, 1,000 people that they say are over 350 years, longer than the country has been around. They're on the doles. And I think to me, when I hear that stuff, our system is so antiquated. I mean, they are still digging up paper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think they put it on microfiche. I mean, I don't know.
Well, the other thing is, and this, you're getting to this, but even the computer systems that exist in some instances are like 40, 50 years old. I mean, they're running computers. I know this for a fact. They're running computer systems that are so antiquated, they can't find programmers to even fix the programming. Like, they're running COBOL or Fortran or some. I mean, these are all ancient computer languages at this point,
Yeah, they got to go through the villages in Florida and the loudspeaker.
That's right. We'll pay you $300,000 to show up for work.
That's right. Find some dude that isn't smoking dope every day and say, "Hey, do you know Fortran?"
And they are too.
Down there they are.
Okay, so what I've heard about these places is that they're dens of sin. I don't know if you've ever heard this. Everybody's like stuffing everybody.
Bunch of old saggers around there.
I know.
It's disgusting.
Well, I'm going to be there in about 3 years. So
exactly.
I can't complain. So, you know who Ray Dalio is, right? He's a big time investor.
Yeah, I've heard his name.
You've heard of him? Yeah, he's predicting the next three months the economy is going to completely blow up. Now, my friend, he is my friend, Murray Sabrin, comes on this show regularly. He was just on last week. And I also have another friend, and I told Murray this, and sometimes I thought, well, maybe Murray thinks I'm talking about me, but I'm not. I have another friend in finance that you know of, and he thinks Murray's nuts. Murray's been predicting a recession now for 2 years, and he basically said it'll be the first quarter of 2025 at the latest. And my friend thinks he's crazy. But now more and more people are starting to say that. Do you see anything coming up here in the tea leaves in your own?
Yeah, I mean, I think consumer spending in January was way down. People sat on their wallets. And again, I don't, to me, and I've got some retail businesses, to me, that's just part of the cycle of if people are sitting on their wallets, then the expectation is the government needs to. So that's not a lose to me. Maybe painful for some aspects of the economy, but overall, what are you going to do? People don't want to spend money, and interest rates are, and money's expensive to use, to borrow it. That's just a reality, and we should live in more reality than this. Oh, if you want something, just go get some cheap financing and get what you want. I don't, there's a balance there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and I don't see. I just don't know enough about. I mean, literally, that's why I ask questions to you and Murray and other people. I really don't know enough about this to actually know. I just don't.
Yeah, I think this Mexico-Canada deal here will kind of set the tone for what happens globally. And if Trump can get Ukraine and Russia to stop that nonsense, that'll save our government a ton of money from military expenses. And let's face it, things can turn quickly.
Well, yeah. Right. Do you think that the American military should go into Mexico and pound the crap out of the cartels? That we should actually like bomb them? Something like this.
I think that's a bad idea. I just I mean the drugs are terrible that come through there. The cartels are awful. I think we should just put pressure on their government.
Yeah. But their government has been pussies for a million years. I mean, they've never done anything about this. I assume they're on the take, or they've been threatened with death, one or the other.
Right, right. But I mean, I don't know. That's something that'll cause a rift for 100 years.
Yeah, it would. And the other real problem is, I'm master the obvious here. The cartels have a boatload of money. And that's, so it's like, okay, this wouldn't necessarily be as easy as people think it is either. I don't think, I mean, they can run to Russia and buy tanks. I mean, they could do that,
Well, and it's all urban warfare. So how many civilian casualties are you going to ramp up? I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's why we want the Ukraine thing to stop, is because of all the civilian casualties. That collateral killing is awful.
Yes, it is. I know. They've lost. They're losing about 5,000 people a week. I mean, this is actually way worse than Vietnam was. Way worse. We lost 50,000 people in Vietnam, but that was like an 8-year period. They're losing 5,000 people a week. I mean, Christ. And Russia is too. And so actually, let me ask you about this too. I got a relative of mine who's just really, really pissed off because she says, well, Trump is siding with Putin on this whole thing. This is the way I look at this. I had Mark Tapscott from the Epoch Times on here last week, and we were talking about this. I can see only 3 possible ways this can go. One, we keep on doing what we've been doing, just sending them money, and the war goes on forever, and eventually Russia wins, because they will. The fact that the Ukrainians have even kept this up this long is really incredible. It has. All right, that's the one thing. Russia's going to win no matter how long it takes. They will. Eventually, there's a winner.
They just have more bodies.
Right. Or we can send troops over there, and then it very quickly becomes World War III, right? Or you have to cede to Russia something that they've got to get Putin to quit, just to get them to quit. And then people say, and my relative says, but that's not fair. It's like you got a bully who ended up getting something that he wanted. But what do? You got to make it stop.
Well, and the thing that Trump's trying to do is to take China off the table with Russia. I mean, in the end, that's really what we want, because they're border countries. I mean, they're Mexico, U.S.
Right. That's right.
And so if those two, I mean, China will want them because they have all the resources and a huge swath of earth. And we just don't want those two to be aligned any more than they already are. And so,
oh, you got a really good point there. I never thought about that. They're literally, it's like it's Mexico and America. It's the same thing. And also, I mean, there's no doubt that Russia is the subordinate player in that relationship. I mean, Russia does not really have a big economy, relatively speaking, and like you
And they're
said,
spread out. I mean, they're
right,
they got a lot of land, but they're like Canada. There's for the
right,
amount of land and the amount of people.
yeah,
And so, yeah, I think in the end, that's Trump's play is let's get Russia to be more middle of the road than needing the need to align with China.
right, yeah.
Because
Very
China
good.
wants their gas and their oil, their natural gas. I mean, China consumes a lot of materials.
Well, like you said, I mean, there's 1.6 billion people. They have 5 times more people than the United States does. That's a lot of
Right.
people. They all have to be closed and fed and heated up, and
Right.
And one thing Russia does have, like you just alluded to, is they do have natural gas. They have
Yeah.
gas, so they have stuff to sell. So I know, but people don't think about this, Jeffrey. They don't. It's just
Well, and again, it the media gets you to put blinders on and to just look at one scenario. But we're talking about there's a lot more scenarios than what are presented in a 2-minute news clip.
Yeah. Speaking of the news, and so AB, I don't know. You probably didn't see this because it happened this morning. I don't know. You're on your farm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you out plowing the field? Or how much snow did you get up there?
About 7 inches.
We got about a foot here in town. We were expecting about 4.
Wow.
I know, it's really pretty. It's pretty, but it's going to all be gone in like 3-4 days. I mean, they're talking
Right.
50 by the weekend again. So, who knows? But at any rate, this morning, ABC News laid off 6% of their staff. And CNN is still laying off more people. And the whole mainstream legacy media seems to be, relatively speaking, it's not going to go away, but collapsing,
Yeah.
And,
restructuring is what they call it in the business world.
Yeah, right. We'll restructure.
Yeah. Yeah. Are they crying in their own Wheaties like they were for all the government employees that were getting laid off?
Yeah, they're crying. That's right. They're crying.
Why me?
Right. It's a terrible, terrible injustice. You know that. It's like, for somebody who's been fired a dozen times in their life, I don't have a lot of sympathy here.
Yeah,
so,
right. It's like, hey, pull your pants up and you shove your boots in them and let's go.
Yeah,
but a new job.
But the problem is, if you've never actually had to find a new job, this is all virgin territory for you. As a person.
That's why we don't cry for them.
That's right. That's right. That's
Especially
right.
the government ones. They're the ones. If you can't write down 5 things that you do every day, and I like the people that think they're really important. Well, I work for this and I have this kind of clearance. Okay, well, we didn't ask you to name whoever you were going after. Just, hey, I'm pursuing this, that, and the other thing. It just cracks me up how it's like, quit looking at me. Quit looking at me.
Sounds like you're dating.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, this is not going well for these people, but like a lot of people said, you F around and you find out. It's like
FAFO, baby.
That's right. And how can you expect that, you keep on lying over the course of years. And so now, and you probably have heard about this already. Jake Tapper's writing a book on how the media masqueraded or covered up Joe Biden's mental decline. And people, it's like someone said, well, he's got a lot of balls. I mean, he does. I mean, he was an active participant in this, and now he's turning around and writing about it. It's like, and I think that maybe if I was him, looking at it from my own self-preservation, maybe that's a good thing to do. But who would buy this book?
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the people that get on the singing show with that Simon Cowell used to be on. The Voice. The Voice. And you could tell that their mother always told them, you sound so wonderful. You're so talented. And then they get out and, where it's recorded and it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
you
Well,
can't, you can't sing. And Jake, you can't cover up your cover up.
no, no, no. There's so much video evidence. He's on television, for Christ's sakes. It's like, it's like, what are you thinking? They're
I
gonna
just, I will buy it because I want to see if he calls out my buddy Morning Joe.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now that's really
Sharpest I've ever seen him. Sharpest I've ever seen him.
people are starting to. There are people are starting to, and the media is starting to think that Joe should be fired. What do you think?
Oh, it is such a bad show. You have to watch it. I mean, and a lot of people don't want to get up early and hear Mika in the background sighing and just wringing her hands. But it's such good TV. It is just such good TV because they can never look. They don't have a mirror in their house. Okay? Who's the problem? Because they never have to look at themselves.
I don't think they'd land anywhere else if they lost their jobs. I can't think of it. No, I mean, that would be it. They'd be done.
It's like the gal from MSNBC that had her show, Reed.
Yeah.
Oh,
she won't end up anywhere.
No.
And
the reason is you have to back your bullshit like we're doing with some kind of knowledge of it.
Right.
Some kind of knowledge of how the whole thing works. And she never could.
Well, but Jeffrey, most reporters don't do that, So I think it was, matter of fact, I think it was David Strom again on Hot Air who wrote an article about what's called the Gell-Mann effect. Have you ever heard about this? It's when people are reading the media or looking at the media and the media reports on something they actually know about, and then all of a sudden they realize they've been permanently had. And this happened to me in the 1990s when I was running this big, huge website. I was in a virtual meeting about advertising rates that a lot of well-known people in the web business were in. I was there. I was invited. And so the meeting went on, and then I'm not going to name the outlet, but one of the major news outlets at the time wrote an article about the meeting, and the reporter said he was also there. I didn't know that, but he said that. And what he wrote had absolutely nothing to do with what happened in the meeting whatsoever. And I'm reading that, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is all bullshit. And that's when that was the moment I realized it's all bullshit. It's like we were in we're in two different places, buddy. You did not report on the meeting that I was at,
Right.
And so I didn't realize there's an actual name for this, but he said, but Strom was saying this is what's happening to more and more people. This is happening to more and more people where the media is reporting on stuff they actually know about, that they're expert in. And then people say, oh my God, that's wrong.
Yeah. I mean, it happened all during COVID.
Yeah.
All during COVID.
Right.
I mean, that's as raw of an example of this. Doctors saying one thing and the media saying the total opposite, not knowing anything, but knowing they could verify what the doctors say and reporting something completely different.
But what really bothers me about that COVID instance is that you only had to do like 5 minutes of research to realize that vaccines don't stop transmission. That was the thing. It was people were saying, no, you don't get vaccinated for yourself. You get vaccinated for everybody else. That's completely untrue. Totally. And you only have to get on the Google for 5 minutes to figure that out. And nobody did. It's like, that just amazed the hell out of me. No,
it's like the measles spreading around in these small towns in Texas where all the border jumpers came.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, measles was, when I was growing up, was a common thing. As a matter of fact, you wanted your kids to have it to get it over with. That was kind of the deal.
Sure.
It was no big deal. And now it's like just some giant Armageddon type of, it's going to kill us all. No, it isn't. It is not. Although it might be bad, I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. And I know it does kill adults. I know that. But still, it's like, it's, well, the whole thing about COVID in general. I mean, this would happen when we were working together. Like the flu kills an average of 40,000 people every year. And that never got reported on ever. In 2018, it was 80,000. It hit a high. And I remember during the COVID thing, it was a long time into COVID before COVID. I mean, it got it to 80,000 deaths. And I'm thinking, well, it's like, this is not that big a deal. relatively speaking, it's not that big a deal. But nobody, I don't know, nobody reported on that either.
Well, they made it sound like you're going to be driving down the road and the guy coming at you would just fall over dead in his car.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It was like they were predicting a zombie movie.
That's right.
Happening.
They were. That's exactly what they were predicting. Yeah.
It's like the bird flu. No other countries killed their chickens except the Americans.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. We killed the largest amount of egg-laying chickens because of the supposed bird flu. Canada didn't. Mexico didn't.
Yeah. And I'm trying to change the subject here, but this is like a mark of capitalism. Americans eat 8 million chickens every day. Every day, 8 million chickens. And you can still get one like on a rotisserie for like $5.99. It's freaking unbelievable, you know? Well, you know, communism can't do that. I just want to point that out to people.
Right. That's why they got to buy hogs from the hog farmers in America.
That's right. Hey man, nice talking to you. I'm glad you could.
Talking to you.
I'm glad you could do this from the farm. I'm glad we worked it out.
I should have put my jacket on. I kind of Zelensky'd you.
Yeah. No, you got it going on. It's okay. That's kind of the same thing. You got a collar though. He didn't, but you know.
That's right. That's right.
He'll never show up in a suit ever. It's not going to happen. You know.
I like it. I hate him too.
It does look like they're going to get that worked out, but you know, I don't know. Yeah.
Everyone's got to have a little faith. Don knows what he's doing.
Yeah, no, Don does know what he's doing, and yeah, you're right. And I don't know if you saw the getting back to the speech, goes full circle here. I mean, the approval ratings for speech were enormous, 75 to 80% of the public on everything. You know, matter of fact, somebody online said who worked with Reagan said it was even better than any of Reagan's speeches, and he was considered the master at it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear it, but people said it was just fantastic. You know, so good for him. Anyway, thank you, Jeffrey. We'll talk to you soon. You take care. We'll see you.
Good talking to you.
Our thanks to Jeffrey Meyer for joining us there. Always interesting, fascinating to have him on. He has a really interesting perspective on almost everything, and that's because he's in a very unique position. You know, I've known a lot of entrepreneurs in my life. They think differently than most people. That's the same with Trump. You know, he's pretty much in the same boat there, too. He thinks differently from people. And it really bears mentioning what Jeffrey was talking about, the fact that, you know, everyone looked at this thing about Zelensky blowing up in the Oval Office saying, oh, that's so terrible. Oh, my God. No, life is not necessarily neat, you know. Life is messy, and democracy is messy and slow. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It was designed that way because then you can take everything into account. You know, it's fast and decisive dictatorship. What they got going on in China. They can turn on a dime. Now, actually, seriously, they actually have a little bit of advantage of us in that regard because democracy is messy and slow no matter what you try to speed it up. And of course, Trump is trying to speed it up. But, you know, there's always lawsuits, injunctions. There's the opposing party blocking votes, all that sort of stuff. That all happens. it's a par for the course. It's a regular day, you know. But Xi Jinping can wake up and in the morning and say, I don't want McDonald's in the country anymore. They'll be gone in 48 hours. But interesting about the dictatorship. My mother grew up in my 100-year-old mother has been on the show, who's recovering from her pelvis accident. She busted her pelvis. She fell, and she's amazing. She's 100 years old. She's healing just fine. The doctors say they don't need, they gave her some pain pills. She took them for a few days. Doesn't need them anymore. Any rate, the reason I brought that up is because she grew up in Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia no longer exists. It was Croatia and Serbia and Montenegro and North Macedonia and a couple other of those little countries over there they made up Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia was run by Marshal Tito after the Second World War. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Tito was a dictator, but he was probably considered the most benevolent dictator in history. And the people of Yugoslavia loved him because he treated them very well. He really, truly thought of the country and thought of the people in the country basically before himself. And it worked spectacularly well. The problem with benevolent dictatorship is it hardly ever happens. That's the problem. And then you have, there's people who start out like that and basically devolve into chaos, bullshit, and evil. And I've always thought the reason I love the show Breaking Bad is because it was a 5-year descent of someone basically descending into evil. I mean, Walter White started out with the best of intentions. He was going to provide for his family after he died. That was the deal. And he ended up being just an evil son of a bitch, and it happened very, very slowly. And that's what happens. Robert Moses was the guy who ran the infrastructure in New York City for years in the middle of the 20th century. And that's exactly what happened to him. He started out a very noble man. And by the time 30 years later, he was basically completely mired in corruption. And the same thing, it was very slow, very slow. It's the point where the people who are doing it can't even recognize it. All right, call me up. 325-225-5546. That's 325 call Jim. I want to point out you can call that number any time of the day and night and leave a 2-minute voice message too. You can call me in bed. You can call me, while you're waiting for your order in and out, whatever, you can call me and leave a couple message or a couple minutes, just what's on your mind or what are you doing, or whatever. You can also send me a text message, 408-458-5088. And so, yeah, so give me a call, okay? I got a few things here. Otherwise, Jeff and I were talking about the mainstream media. There's two things I want to bring up about this, and they're kind of related. One is Rachel Maddow, and that's Rachel Maddow basically commenting on her former stablemate Joy Reid's exit from MSNBC. I used to say I'd like to have Rachel Maddow on the show, that she's one of those liberals that although I don't agree with her a lot, at least there's some logic and validity there. The person on the top of that list is Bill Maher. I'd love to have Bill Maher on. I'd love to talk to him. And we don't, it'd be really interesting. A lot of people say, oh, well, people who are sensible agree more than disagree. And that may be true, but I know there's a lot of stuff I disagree with him on. But his thing is he seems to always be able to back his opinion up with some kernel of logic, which is, kind of what you'd think people would do. But, look at last night. Let's look at the Democrats could not have dug themselves into a bigger hole. They looked so bad. And even people in the Democratic Party are saying this. It was basically a shit show. And not only that, Trump baited them and they took the bait hook, line, and sinker. That's the amazing thing. They seem to have nothing going on at all. Nothing. They don't have any new ideas. They don't, it's like they are truly the opposition party because all they do is oppose. At any rate, I'm talking about Rachel Maddow. So she got on the horn after Reid got fired, the horn being MSNBC, her show, which she does now temporarily 5 nights a week, although she's going to go back to 1 night a week. She gets paid, this is not exaggeration. She gets paid $25 million a year for up till recently for doing 1 night a week of television. Right? What's that? $500,000 a show about? Almost exactly, right? Okay, so she gets on her program and she's talking about how she says she understands why a, a corporate did this, but she completely disagrees and thinks it's very wrong, and goes on to tout the virtues of Joy Reid. At the end of the day, Joy Reid got fired because her ratings were bad. I mean, yeah, I can sit here and tell you she's a doofus, and a lot of other people do the same thing too, but that's not the problem. If her ratings have been good, we will keep a doofus on television. I actually pulled this up today because it made me think of that. Have you seen the movie Network from 1976? The late Peter Finch plays a network news anchor at that time, a la Walter Cronkite, who basically starts to lose his mind and starts to come into work and starts to go off script and basically say crazy crap on television. And you think the first thing is, well, they have to let him go until they realize he's saying crazy crap and the ratings are going up. So then the movie's about them encouraging him to say crazy crap. So because every time the more crazy he gets on television, the higher the ratings go. And the weird thing about this is, first of all, you can make an argument. At that time, this seemed ludicrous, and I even said even then, I was like 22 years old or something like that, and I'm saying, this is going to happen, and I'll be damned, it did, because that's where we're at right now. So, case in point, you fought for that 49 years, and like I was telling Jeff, if you heard the interview, I got on TikTok last week and was looking around, and I hadn't done this for a couple of years. And the last time I did it is because Jeff asked me to. I'm working for him. I was the editor in chief of Calling News, and I'm working for him. And he said, "Get on TikTok to see if we can use this if we want to get on there." And I did, and I told him at the time. I said, "My God, this is crap." I said, I didn't believe it. It's like, oh my God, it's the most worthless, pathetic stuff imaginable. And so I got on. That was about 3 years ago. I got on last weekend, and it's worse. So now we got a producer on the show now, Steven, and I texted Steven. I said, it is every single person under the age of 21 that insecure? And he wrote back and said, yeah. I checked out the live thing because that's what I'm thinking about. I'm putting the show on there live, because up to recently, you couldn't do landscape television, what we're doing basically here on TikTok. It was all vertical video. And what I found was that honest to God, 95% of it is young women basically looking for attention. And I'm not saying they're selling themselves or even anything, although a few of them are actually selling products. Good for them. That's not a bad thing. I'm not going to put down that. But most of them are just trying to get people to tell them they're pretty. And it's just pathetic. I mean, it's like, and I don't think I saw anybody under the age of 25. I don't, and I don't know. I mean, call me up if you have any opinions on this. I just think this is just, and just like I told Jeff, in our youth being 20s, if you're under 30, we were stupid. And then I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is another level of stupid. But it's like, I don't even know if I want the show to be part of that. That's the thing, I mean, we might be able to get a lot of viewers, but I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Anyway, so I've got totally off track here. So about Rachel Maddow talking about Joy Reid. So she gets on the horn and says that, and then Megyn Kelly, the great Megyn Kelly, who is Megyn Kelly is an amazing woman, an amazing person. I don't know if I call her even a journalist anymore. She's an interviewer and an interrogator. I mean, and that's even what she did on her work on Fox News was brilliant. And now she's on her own podcast. She just did her 1,000th show, and she's still brilliant. And she said, and I can't remember she was on another podcast, someone else's podcast. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull this up here really quick. She was on the Semaphore podcast of Semaphore News, and she's talking to Ben Smith, the co-founder of Semaphore News, and she says, well, the problem with Rachel Maddow is that Rachel goes on and on about being a working class person and representing the working class, and she's getting paid $25 million a year for up to recently 1 day of work a week. And I never thought about this, but the thing is, and one of the things Rachel was going on about all the staffers that were let go because Reed got fired, and she could chop $2 million up for salary and keep 10 of those people employed. Is she going to do that? No, she isn't. I mean, she's getting paid obscene amounts of money for working not very much. Now, right now, she is scheduled to do 5 nights a week on MSNBC through the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. And that is going to end when? Let me do some quick. March, April, around May 1st. And which point she's going back to 1 day a week. $25 million. I want to point this out. She gets paid $500,000 a day to work. This is, I mean, I can go on about the fact that people in the media are paid inflated salaries, but this is absolutely ridiculous. And what's really ridiculous is that they can't justify it. There's no way, based on the economies of what's going on right now and MSNBC's revenues, because they're in the process of being cut off from NBC proper. They're going to be their own self-standing company. They can't afford to do this. Somebody that said that she's their only ratings gold they've got. Well, compared to what? I know there's a theory if you're in business. I know Jim Collins wrote that book, Good to Great, and he said that basically this is what he demonstrated in the book, and that is that revenues are the only thing that matters. In other words, it does not matter if you save money. The only thing that matters is that you bring in more money. That's what matters. And under that formula, I said, well, that's the reason, a big sports stars get paid huge amounts of money, everything. And that's a whole different deal. The economy of sports is a kind of a different deal because in some ways it also runs in a deficit. Because I don't know if you know this, most sports teams do not make money. Professional sports teams, some of them do. The Houston Astros have been very good. The Astros have been at the top of the revenue generating scale in the Major League Baseball for years. They do eons better than all other teams. They're very good at making money, and they usually aren't that good either. That's the thing, but they're very good at it. But most teams aren't, and the reason they justify this is that most teams make their profit, make their big payoff when they sell the team, when they sell it, because there's a bunch of rich guys across the planet who want to own these things, and they will pay real top dollar, which is the reason now sports franchises in Major League Sports are going for billions of dollars. That's the reason. But MSNBC can't justify paying Rachel Maddow the salary, but they pay it anyway because, like I said, because that's the justification that she's bringing in more revenue than anybody else. Anyway, so now I'm getting a little off topic. Well, what did Megyn Kelly say? She said, you're right. She could give up $2 million of her salary and save at least 10 of those people's jobs, if not more. She's what's the difference to her between 23 and $25 million a year? And she's already getting paid an obscene amount of money for barely working. At any rate, that's that. And then here's the meanwhile to that, the opposite end of that. Fox News is now making scads of profit. Their ratings are obscene. They're so high. In January and February, just this last 2 months, Fox News was the number 2 television network in America, not cable television overall. In other words, I don't know. I'm gonna get the order mixed up here. They came in second to NBC in January and second to CBS in February, I think. In other words, they're beating the broadcast networks, and they're on cable. At night, they're drawing for their primetime lineup. They're drawing 3.5 million people an hour. Now you compare that to like Chicago Fire or whatever the hell they're running on, or or Law and Order SVU. Well, those shows draw about 4 million people. All right, they draw a little more, right? Yeah, but they cost about $3 million each to produce. After you pay Jesse Waters, and I'm sure he's getting, my guess is he's getting paid $5 to $10 million a year. Now you're wondering, well, how does that compare to Rachel Maddow? First of all, it's way less than she's getting paid, and secondly, Jesse Waters is on 2 highly rated television shows, his own and The Five, which is the highest rated show on cable television. The Five draws almost 4 million people every day at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't even understand how this works. It's not even in prime time. When most people are in their cars driving home from work, 4 million people sit down to watch The Five. It's just, I mean, it's mind boggling. So what happened, this seemed to happen right after the inauguration. What happened is that a whole bunch of people left CNN and MSNBC and turned the channel over to Fox, and they stayed there. That's what seems to have happened. So their ratings are through the roof. They're making money hand over fist. I mean, it's almost unbelievable that a cable television channel would be doing this well, but they are. They're not just the number one cable news channel; they're the number one cable channel on cable television. Period. And like I said, the last 2 months they've been the number 2 network, even in broadcast television, and they're not on broadcast television. Anyway, I just find this just absolutely fascinating. It's like you never think you'd see something like that. They're just absolutely cleaning up. So that's the actual that's the counter to Rachel Maddow and her failing television network. There you go. That's it. All right. So what else is going on? There's a new search that just started after 11 years for the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 in the Indian Ocean. There's this company, and are they called Oceans Unlimited? I think. Once again, I'm pulling this out of my butt. Forgive me. They're doing they're doing this on what they call a no fine, no fee basis. In other words, if they don't find the airplane, they don't get paid. So okay, fine. That's pretty cool. But they're in the Indian Ocean looking for the airplane based on new evidence of triangulation of some of the last radar ping data that happened. Now, we've had Ashton Forbes on this program, and he has claimed, matter of fact, I should have him back on again just to explain how this works over again. He has claimed that what happened to Malaysia Flight 370, and this is a really, can't remember when he was on. It was about a year ago. And go back and watch the episode because we ran video along with his appearance. He claims that airplane was transported across time and space to another location by the U.S. government as an experiment. That's what he claims. And the other thing is, he says, and we showed it. He says he has video of it happening, the video is pretty convincing. I know a lot about video. It would be. I just said this like last night talking to Marcus Louth about the fact that video is now so easy to fake, but radar data video is not. And what I saw was I have to say it was pretty convincing. That's what he's claimed. He's claimed that they have figured out and I think he said this, by reverse engineering crashed extraterrestrial spacecraft, they figured out how to transport items across time and space instantaneously. That's his claim, and he has a video of the airliner literally just disappearing in mid-flight. And the thing is, up till now, that's been the best solution anybody's had. They find small pieces of the plane that washed ashore on Pacific Islands, supposedly. And yeah, it was actually in the Pacific, I think. It was quite far away from the actual spot where the airline disappeared or supposedly disappeared. That airline was flying from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia to Beijing. That's where it's flying. And it disappeared, or no, I shouldn't say that. Radar communication with that airliner shut off at exactly the handshake trade-off point between Kuala Lumpur and Vietnam, in the middle of that ocean there. And so I don't know if you know this, what happens is airlines fly. As they fly, they enter and leave various radar zones run by various airports. And there's a trade-off point. There's a point where for a short period of time, you're on the radar of both of those airports. That's the way it works. And you literally get on the horn and say, we're leaving your airspace. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. And we're entering your airspace. Nice to see you. That's what happens. And at that moment, they lost contact. Now, it's been brought up that if you were going to hijack the airplane and you knew what you were doing, which most hijackers don't, because this is a fairly complex process, that's the exact moment you'd actually cut it off. That's where you do it. I mean, within a minute. And the chances of that happening by chance are pretty slim, but still, you'd have to be pretty damn sophisticated to actually know what you were doing, So, but Ashton's claim is that he said he was given this video by a member of the U.S. Intelligence community he said, and he named the guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, that he said that guy was thrown into prison for making that video public and is still in prison to this day for basically treason because he violated his security oath. And he said the video is legit, and I don't know anybody who's countered him. I mean, people say he's crazy. I mean, it sounds like nuts, but the problem is, so Marcus Louth was on this show last night, and if you get a chance to watch that episode, please do, because he writes for several UFO magazines. He's the editor-in-chief of UFO Insight, among others. And some of the craziest crap that people floated out is turning out to be true. And so it's like, I don't have to tell you this. I mean, it's the same in politics. All those conspiracy theories, the ones I said people were laughing at me, they all turned out to be true. And not to mention the fact 30 years ago, I was saying that the Americans, that UFOs are real. And then finally in 2020, the U.S. Navy admitted it. So that was kind of a watershed moment. And so I'm going to end this tonight with this too. Hold on a second. I watched a 3-part series on Netflix called The Manhattan Alien Abduction this last weekend. Actually, know what I'm talking about. I watched it last night. I fell asleep during Trump's speech. And when it was done, I thought, well, screw it. Let's watch this. And so I watched it. It's in 3 45-minute parts. So it's about a little over 2 hours total. And I'm familiar with the story, very familiar. It's about a woman named, her name's Linda Napolitano, and she lives in Manhattan, kind of like a working class person, Italian descent, fairly pretty for her age and for hate to say it, for her station in life. And she says that she was abducted from her 12th floor apartment in Manhattan next to the Brooklyn Bridge. Aliens took her through the window and up to their spacecraft and ran off with her. That's what she says. Now, the thing about this is, all right, that sounds nuts, right? There's at least 24 people who said they saw this, and that's the thing. And Marcus wrote an article about this. And the amazing thing is, I didn't know this until I got on last night. I thought, well, maybe I'll talk about this tonight to get a few more written details. And the first thing that came up in my Google search was one of his articles. And this is the amazing thing. And I told him this. I never even heard of this guy till recently, and now I see his articles everywhere. I mean, now that I'm familiar with his name, I mean he's all over the place. Anyway, and I can't remember which publication it was in, but the first thing that comes up is an article he wrote about this, which was really ironic because he was on the show last night. At any rate, he says this too, and that is, not only are there at least 24 witnesses, that none of these people have recanted their stories over the last 30 years. This supposedly happened in November 1989. So that's the thing. People actually said they saw this woman floating up into a UFO above her apartment building. I know this sounds absolutely nuts, but like I said, there are people who say they saw this. So that's the one thing you have to keep in mind, is that regardless of what happens here, there were multiple witnesses. Okay, so now she gets in touch with Bud Hopkins, a guy who was investigating an alien abduction at that time. And Bud, I think Bud died in 2016. I think, you know, and so he glommed onto the story, partly because there were so many witnesses, and partly because of just the fact that she was abducted, and there are so many witnesses. Excuse me. So he says, "Well, this is an incredible story. We gotta start talking about this somewhere." And he was going to write a book, and he did write a book called Witnessed. And from what I think, the book is now out of print. I'm not sure, partly because this story has been so contested. But his wife, his co-researcher, she started to smell. Her name's Carol Rainey. She just passed away too a couple of years ago. She started to think this smelled really weird, that something was wrong here. And it turns out that there's a good possibility that Lennon Napolitano, the subject, the abductee, fabricated a lot of the story, even though, and this is the part Marcus talks about too, and he didn't have to talk about this, but I'd like to, I should have an audience to talk about the story. The fact that there's a lot of, like, especially the witnesses, there's a lot of corroborating evidence to suggest this really happened. And yet, on top of that, she might have lied about part of it. And then the question, as he addresses in an article, why do you lie about something that's actually true? Why elaborate on it and exaggerate it when it's already true? And and he brings up the fact, well, people like attention, and she might have become addicted to the attention. She was going on talk shows, all sorts of stuff. This is like in the early 1990s. She was on Geraldo, she was on Oprah, she was on Ricky Lake. I don't know if you remember Ricky Lake had a talk show, and and people actually do kind of get heady from the attention. They do. And also the fact that she got, although it's never been revealed how much, she got some money from Bud Hopkins' book. He cut her in because he was writing about her. So there's that too. So she made some money at it. But on the other hand, like I said, it's pretty. There's this may be this. There are few, if any, alien abductions who have ever had this many witnesses. That's the thing about this. And Marcus said the same thing. None of the witnesses have ever recanted their story. I mean, I don't know who they all are, but somebody does have a list. Bud Hopkins did. He knew who they all were because they contacted him and told him, I saw this. Not only that, they contacted him before anyone even knew he was working with this woman and working on the story. So that's the really weird thing. People were just calling him up because he was known to be a UFO investigator, and said, I saw this thing that happened in Brooklyn next to the Brooklyn Bridge, and so that's the thing. There's numerous witnesses, including very possibly the Secretary General of the United Nations, who apparently was on the bridge being shuttled in a limousine on the bridge when this happened. This is kind of a dicey part of the story. This is the part where it gets all murky, although supposedly Bud Hopkins did talk privately. That was Louis what's her name? What's his name? De Kellar, if I'm right, was his name. And Bud Hopkins, he wouldn't talk on the record, but Bud Hopkins said he did talk to him privately, and privately he admitted he saw it. He did. Him and his two bodyguards. And the two bodyguards, they're driving the limo. That gets into a really weird thing too, because apparently one of them supposedly became obsessed with this woman and they actually kidnapped her. I mean, the story gets really wild. This is the ancillary story that has actually nothing to do with the actual alien abduction. This is stuff that happened afterwards that really, he got obsessed with her. They kidnapped her. It's like, there are people in the government seem to think that she's an actual alien herself, supposedly. And a lot of people think she fabricated all this, including the two bodyguards, because although Duquesne did have drivers, obviously, no one really knows if they're these two guys. There's never any real definitive proof that it was them. So the whole thing's just really weird. At any rate, that's what fascinated me about this whole thing, is that it appears that she lied and exaggerated or elaborated on the story, even though it might be true or that the core elements of it are. Because, like I said, there were numerous witnesses, and you can't. How many? None of these people knew each other. That's like, and then Carol Rainey, Hopkins' wife, she thinks it was elaborate setup, but you couldn't get 24 people to agree to lie about something like that without something cracking somewhere. It couldn't happen. It's been 30 years. There's been no cracks. All these people still say this happened. They saw it. They insist they do not know Miss Napolitano. They don't know her. If it would not take a lot of investigative work to figure out a tie between her and one of those people. No one's found it. So I don't know. That's it's an interesting show. I suggest you watch it on Netflix if you get Netflix. If you're paying, like I am for 17 different services at $10 a pop, because I'm nuts. Now, the thing is, I subscribe to a lot of like websites, written websites because I need information for the show, and usually that's about five. It's usually about $5 a month is what I pay, and I don't subscribe to a lot of them, not even a dozen, I don't think, but I do a few to get information here that's worthy of talk about. But yeah, it's like yeah, I don't know. How much does Netflix cost right now? I think it's $12 a month, is it? You know, I don't know if that's worth it or not. I have no idea. I got to tell you, Jeff Bezos is a brilliant son of a bitch. So he thought about the fact, okay, we'll sell you stuff. We'll start a giant online store, and then we'll let you pay extra for the. You can subscribe to it to get free shipping. Yeah, 100 million people pay for Amazon Prime now it's $129 a year. It started at 100. Well, can you do the math? 100 million people times $100. I bet you can do that math. That's a lot of freaking money. What is that? 10 billion bucks? I think it is. Yeah, that's smart. Who would have thought of that? We'll let you pay for the privilege of shopping here. All right, you guys aren't calling me. Well, screw you. Okay. That's our show for tonight. We're done. Tomorrow night, we got Nathan Wooster from the Epoch Times. Always an interesting guy. Oh my God, I have to tell you, the air in Minnesota during the winter gets so dry. Excuse me. we got a 12 inches of snow here last night, and they said we were going to get 4. Well, they were wrong. Okay, so tomorrow night, late Nathan Wooster from the Epoch Times is here. Friday night, yeah, we're doing a Friday show. Lee Richardson from the Brain Performance Center in Dallas, psychologist. She's joining us. I want to thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Jeff Meyer for coming on. Good night, Esperanza. Good night, Uncle Donnie. And good night to you, wherever you are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Take care, everybody.